It all began with liberation, but ended in gunfire. On April 29, 1945, American soldiers stormed the gates of Dachau, expecting to find prisoners of war. Instead, they uncovered a nightmare. Thousands of emaciated corpses, survivors barely clinging to life, and the stench of death hanging in the air. What followed was one of the most controversial moments of World War II. So today, let's uncover a chapter of World War II that history books often skip. The day American soldiers liberated Dachau and, in a moment of raw emotion, turned their guns on the camp's Nazi guards. It's a story that blurs the line between justice and revenge, between heroism and heartbreak. Dachau, opened in March 1933, only weeks after Hitler rose to power, was one of the first concentration camps built by Nazi Germany. It served as a model for later camps where political prisoners, Jews, and other groups endured forced labor, starvation, and medical experiments. As one of the first camps, its design and administration helped shape the cruel system that followed. Guards drilled inmates into exhaustion while doctors ordered lethal tests. The camp's security apparatus included watchtowers, electrified fences, and guard dogs. By April 1945, many survivors were skin and bone, their bodies bearing scars from beatings and needles. On April 14, 1945, as Allied forces closed in, SS Chief Heinrich Himmler gave orders to evacuate Dachau's prisoners to other camps. His goal was clear: erase the evidence of Nazi crimes before the Americans arrived. That month, thousands of inmates were forced out. Some marched for miles, others crammed into overcrowded trains. Eventually, the camp's population dropped from over 67,000 to just above 31,000. But the plan failed as American troops reached Dachau before the evacuation was complete. On April 29, 1945, as the U.S. Army's 42nd and 45th Infantry Divisions closed in on Munich, units from both divisions received unexpected orders. They were to break off and take control of a site roughly 10 miles northwest of the city. The name of the place was Dachau. At the time, the phrase concentration camp held little meaning for them, but they had no idea they were about to uncover one of the darkest chapters of the war. From a distance, the camp's red-tiled roofs looked orderly. American GYS expected a POW camp, not a slaughterhouse. Their first shock came at a rail siding where 39 boxcars and gondolas stood parked. What appeared to be piles of dirty laundry revealed itself as 2,310 emaciated corpses, most starved to death, some shot or beaten to death. The smell of decaying flesh hung over fields like a curse. Inside the main compound, bodies lay stacked in huts and hideouts. Some skeletal figures were sprawled on the ground, others tucked under the rafters. Guards had abandoned prisoners whom they left to die. In one coal yard, troops found SS men herding naked inmates like cattle, still beating some with rifle butts. In short, every turn exposed fresh brutality, crushed skulls, torn flesh, and the quiet plea in the dead eyes of victims. Lieutenant William J. Cowling III later confessed he never believed rumors of Nazi atrocities until he saw Dachau. Their legs and arms were only a couple of inches around, he wrote, and they had no buttocks at all. His men, hardened by combat in Europe, wept and vomited at the sight of mounds of human bones. Colonel Walter Fellens recalled that the corpses weighed no more than 50 or 60 pounds each. When GYS looked into the eyes of the dead, those vacant stares seemed to ask, "What took you so long?" The stench of death was overpowering, Lieutenant Colonel Felix L. Sparks mentioned. Eventually, anger spread through the units like a wildfire. Some soldiers kicked and punched captured guards in blind fury. Men who had trained for months to control their reactions now found themselves swearing vengeance. That night, around campfires, soldiers spoke little of their relief at finding survivors. Instead, they traded stories of their rage, each more brutal than the last. Advancing units used a loudspeaker to order SS guards to surrender. Some complied, hands raised, faces pale with fear. Others allegedly fired warning shots or aimed bursts at the GIS. In one opening exchange, troops claimed an SS machine gun at a watchtower fired on them without warning. That single act turned shock into fury. Riflemen and machine gunners returned fire, downing guards on the spot. Dozens of SS men fell before the camp's main gate, their uniforms no shield against American bullets. Witnesses dispute whether all guards fired first or if panic drove soldiers to shoot fleeing men. Some accounts say guards scrambled over fences, trying to surrender. In response, enraged GIS trained their weapons on any German in SS attire. Once the immediate threat ended, soldiers began rounding up SS guards. Reports vary, but most place the death toll at roughly 35 to 50. Some guards were lined up against walls and shot in cold blood. Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks later estimated that 30 deaths was the most accurate figure, despite exaggerated claims of hundreds killed. Sparks stressed that his men acted on both firm orders and uncontrollable outrage. Prisoners who had survived Dachau sometimes joined in the killings. They dragged guards from trucks, tied them to posts, and executed them with handguns. In one case, survivors forced a group of SS men to dig their own shallow graves before shooting them. Walenty Lenarchik, a survivor of Dachau, recalled that right after the camp was liberated, the prisoners felt a sudden surge of courage. They seized SS guards, and in the chaos, violence was swift and unforgiving. They were knocked down, he said, and no one could tell if they were stomped or beaten. But they were killed. We were, all these years, animals to them, and it was our birthday. Word of the killings reached senior commanders quickly. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Whittaker launched the investigation of alleged mistreatment of German guards at Dachau. Soldiers gave sworn testimony under promise of confidentiality. Many admitted shooting guards after witnessing atrocities. Others claimed they fired only in self-defense. The inquiry concluded that the deaths did not exceed 50, but did not classify the act as a war crime. Full reports remained buried in classified files for decades. Publicly, the US Army gave a cautious statement. Officials acknowledged that some accused SS men died after indiscriminate firing, but blamed battlefield confusion. Press coverage was sparse. Military censors removed graphic details from press releases and photo captions. Newspapers printed brief notices under headlines like "Germans die in camp clash," omitting witness accounts of mutilated bodies and survivor participation. For the wider world, the Dachau reprisals became a footnote, not a scandal. Historians debate whether the Dachau shootings amounted to war crimes. On one side, critics argue that summary executions violated the Geneva Conventions, which require prisoners to receive trial. They point out that even the worst offenders deserve due process. On the other side, defenders emphasized the unique context. GIS had just uncovered evidence of industrial-scale murder. They argue that soldiers, already traumatized, reacted to unspeakable crimes beyond normal moral restraint. In survivor memoirs, the killings at Dachau sometimes surface as an act of deliverance. Former prisoners describe standing silent as SS men fell, their executions weaving closure into liberation. Today, Dachau's reprisal stands as a cautionary tale about the limits of vengeance. Military ethics courses examine it alongside My Lai and other controversial episodes. At the Dachau Memorial site, plaques note both the liberation and the reprisals. Visitors learn how liberators sometimes became executioners. Guided tours discuss the reprisals openly, framing them within broader debates on justice and revenge. By confronting this darker side of liberation, memorial curators hope to foster nuanced understanding of human behavior in war's final hours. So, the Dachau reprisals force us to grapple with a stark paradox. Soldiers who saved lives crossed a line into executioners. Was it brutal justice or uncontrollable revenge? probably a tragic mix of both. This episode remains a powerful reminder that even rescuers can be consumed by rage. Now, what are your thoughts about this chapter of World War II? Share with us in the comments section below. Also, if you liked this video, share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel for more interesting content.